All right, should be live by now. How's it going, everybody? This is the Osmo.com NHL DFS Strategy Show. We've got a nice 9-game slate on a Monday, and that means Slim Cliffy's joining us. What's up, Cliffy? How you doing, man?
Oh, not too bad. Just yeah, really excited to get back to reasonably sized slates rather than the 13 game, 2 game on and off that we were doing last week. Like I'm pretty sick of that. So it's nice to have a nice little 9 gamer.
Yeah, that was brutal. I mean, it worked out for me. Like I had a good week or whatever, but like
Of course.
doing like the 2-game slates. I mean, there's only so much you could talk about. Whereas here, a little more some nuanced takes. Hopefully, people in the chat look like they're pretty excited to see you. You haven't been on the show in like 3 weeks, I think, because you
Yeah,
only do
it's
Monday.
it's been a little while because I missed a couple there's a couple Mondays where we didn't have anything, and then I think I did a Friday show a few weeks ago, but that would have been about it.
Yeah. So good to have you back. Everyone's excited to hear from you and see what you got for the slate. We're gonna go through everything. We're gonna go probably look at Saturday night. That one did not go well for me at all. And then we will talk about Yahoo. We'll talk about all the stuff we've got for free today. Our free pieces of premium content, we call it. And we'll actually just start with that. So today we've got the NBA DFS single game / showdown ownership projection. So if you're playing that, I think there's a Warriors game. I can't remember who they're playing tonight, but this would be pretty useful for that. It is free, so go check those out. Osmo's NFL Showdown rankings. If you guys are playing Showdown, this is where you might want to start if you don't have access to the premium tools. The rankings, he ranks every player by value points. You've got some other information, team total, and all that stuff, and those will be updated probably a couple more times before we actually get to the Monday Night Football game. I think it's going to be a pretty good game too, at least some exciting players. And then today, point projections for NHL are also free today. So would be a good time to get a peek behind the curtain as far as what we offer. Just generic point projections. Alex has a lot to do with these, and then I had a little bit of input when we came up with the model. Feels like a lot of our subscribers use it and have success with them. So check those out. Those are free today. Might as well take advantage. We are presented by Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports. You can use promo code OSMO to get up to $30 in Yahoo Sports rewards points when you sign up. And if you want to get some more information on that, check out Emacs primetime article. And then you can see, I think it's the third or fourth paragraph maybe, where he's got some information about how to get signed up and take advantage of the deposit bonus for Yahoo. Yahoo's doing some pretty cool stuff this week. And so American Thanksgiving for anyone that's Canadian or, not from the U.S. This will be on Thursday. So they're offering a pretty cool 25K overlay in the 75K turkey trot. So trying to pull up the information here. Negative 50% management fee. So I already maxed out this 20 max. I think I missed out on the 150 max, but had to deposit more on Yahoo, and definitely going to be playing some NFL. I would suggest you guys do as well. You rarely see contests with lower than 15% rake, and Yahoo offers 10, 12% rake management fees, they call them. And now they're offering guaranteed overlay. So that's pretty cool. Would suggest you guys get over there if you haven't seen what Yahoo has going on. Is that rink behind you real? One of our normal watchers in chat is asking. They're like the poster behind. I'm assuming it's a poster, right?
Yeah, no, it's like a giant like background. Like I think I bought it from some website. I think they're for kids to do their school pictures. So I just bought it this year when I found out that I was going to be doing video shows for Osmo rather than just having like blank background or something like that.
Yeah, I've got a nice fake brick wall behind me. So I had this little addition in the summer. It was better than I don't even know. I think I just had a door in the background. So there you go. Only the finest here at Osmo.com. I finished in second in the Big Saturday GPP to B. Kreider because Leonard lost the shootout and B. Kreider got an assist from his goalie. That is brutal. B. Kreider, have you studied any of the top pros so far this season?
Yeah, I like I've been looking at his lineups. I know which assist that means too. That's the Vasilevsky assist. I think he stopped the puck behind the net on the power play. The defenseman broke out, passed it to the winger. The winger went in and scored. So Vasilevsky got the assist. That's kind of tilting. Yeah, I have been, and it seems like, like a lot of the top players, he seems to be finding those third lines that are chipping in a couple goals. Mm-hmm. And if you look any of the top players over the years, Slewfoot or any of the guys, it seems like they're really good at finding those third lines that chip in a couple goals. Maybe they're not even on a power play unit or something like that, but then that gets them exposure to the expensive players. Tonight would be Pittsburgh top line or Tampa top line or something like that. So it seems like that's kind of the focus. Whether that's what he did on Saturday night, I didn't look. I was just too frustrated with my own lineups.
Yeah, it didn't go well for me, so not much you can learn from my lineups. I think I did a lot of 3-3, but looking at B. Kreider's top lineup in the $44, it was a 51 max. He had 51 lineups. He went Montreal 2, which is what you needed. So he had the full Montreal 2 stack, and then Kucherov, Killorn, Cirelli as his other 3 forwards. So I think Cirelli and Killorn were on the third line together, or maybe that's considered the second line with no Stamkos, and then filled it in with Kucherov. Didn't even get a big performance out of Kucherov, but he had decent enough games from Cirelli and Killorn, plus the Dougie Hamilton 28.1, plus the Shea Weber 25.9, and then his goalie ended up winning. I guess got the assist as well. So. I missed out on that memo on Saturday. When I looked at some of the top lineups, everybody had Weber and Hamilton. Everybody had Weber and Hamilton. I had a couple of Weber shares, but I must have missed the boat. Because all the top lineups had the exact same defenseman. Yeah, I didn't have that much Weber. I think I had a few shares here and there, but he wasn't, I don't think, my top graded defenseman. I think the game was against the Rangers, so it was a good spot. But I think he was 6,800 or 6,500. I mean, you weren't getting a discount on him at all, even though he was probably one of the higher raw point projecting players. I don't know. I mean, yeah, it's you're gonna see a lot of lineups that look similar when two of the most popular defensemen go off like that, and those two guys were certainly that. True. So. When you look up at the top, everyone's going to have some sort of combo like that. I mean, you look at Slewfoot, if he would have played Weber, if he could have fit him in, or Hamilton instead of Hedman in this lineup, I think he would have been near the top. He had Montreal 2 with Point, Taylor Hall, and Kucherov, so a 3-2-1 there. Brett Pesce and Victor Hedman were his defensemen. So solid production all around. The Hall one-off looks like it worked out, 16.5 DK points. But yeah, didn't have the two nuclear defensemen to kind of get it done. So yeah, kind of ended up needing those guys. Draft charts up there. Let's quick look at the. Oh yeah, it was a $5. Yeah, it was a $5. B. Kreider took that down. I think it's the same lineup. Slewfoot was also near the top again. Yeah, B. Kreider had the same lineup that binked both tournaments. He's done this on Saturdays. It feels like every other week. Where he swept both of the top 2 tournaments on DraftKings. So, yeah, he's just murdering Saturday slates for whatever reason. Maybe other people aren't paying attention, or he just turns it on, I guess. Or it's just complete variance, which is probably the most likely situation. I don't know, man. Did you feel like you mentioned those defensemen? Actually, I see you up here. You're in 25th. Let's look at your top lineup quick. McDavid, Atkinson, with full Montreal 2. Ethan Bear at under 1%. You got 11.3 out of him. And then Sergachev as your other defenseman with Draisaitl. So have you been doing a lot of 3-2-1, even on bigger slates?
Yeah, I have. And especially, I'm getting to the point where I'm almost playing McDavid and Draisaitl every time they have a game. Honestly, it's just such an unreasonable pair. That you almost have to play him in. And I find I'm stacking a lot of 2 forwards, 1 defenseman off the power play. I probably needed another Ethan Bear goal on that slate to really do some damage. But like I find myself doing a lot of 3-man forward stacks and then 2 forwards and a defenseman. So yeah, your typical 3-2-1. I'm doing those a lot more often.
Yeah, I've been sticking mostly to 3-3 on bigger slates, but when you got a 3-2 and you can like, like Kassian's expensive, so if you can get some sort of differentiation, like the only reason he's expensive is because of who he's playing with. So like leaving him off, there's no problem with that. If you can find a good one-off, and you found the cheap line that went nuts in Montreal too, you probably needed a goal and maybe a little bit more to really compete for binking this tournament. But you hit on both of your cheap defensemen. I mean, everyone in your lineup had more than 10 points, which isn't often the case in really anyone's lineups. Even like the top lineups usually have, maybe one guy that disappoints. So you 20 max, that's pretty much par for the course, right? You 20 max basically everything every night. Yeah. Okay. So different styles than for me. Like I always joke about playing everyone, and I kind of do to some extent. But here, boy, it was a rough one on Saturday. Okay, my top lineup was 103. I lost almost like 80% of my entry fees. So really bad. I wasn't heavy on Montreal too, and I think the few shares I did have, I clearly didn't have the good pieces elsewhere. So let's talk about tonight's slate. We got about 45 minutes or so to go through this, and we'll go with Buffalo and Tampa first. Get this one out of the way. We've got a 2.8 implied total for the Sabres, 3.7 for the Lightning. Just real quick on the totals, those are totals that Alex comes up with based on his model. So they might be a little bit different than what you're seeing if you're downloading implied totals from somewhere, looking at implied totals from somewhere. But just wanted to note that because I know Tampa is higher at some places, but Alex has that 3.7, so that's what we use because it is the Osmo.com lineup builder. Anyways, Carter Hutton expected to go for the Sabres, Andrei Vasilevsky for the Lightning. We have ownership projections out. Tampa's not as high as I thought, talking about the top line. What do you think of them tonight with this huge implied total? Tampa's been somewhat disappointing, I think, this season. Haven't really nuked a bunch of slates so far. But are you going to be heavy on Tampa 1? Or is this a spot where you're trying to either fade entirely or go all in, like you've said before? What do you think of this spot overall?
Like, I look at the slate tonight, and there's basically 2 really expensive spots that I thought would get ownership. Maybe Tampa doesn't get as much, and that's Pittsburgh and Tampa Bay. I don't really think you can, like the edge that you would give to Pittsburgh is that all 3 players on the top line are on the same power play unit. That's not the case in Tampa Bay. Platt is, I believe, he's on the second unit. So that's kind of the energy we give. But just the track record that I have, or the track record that Tampa Bay has scoring last year, they have looked bad, but I think part of that's injuries. Like Point was hurt, Stamkos has been hurt, Kucherov has been hurt. Like they haven't really had everybody in the lineup. This is one of the few times they've been able to skate Point and Kucherov together. So I'm a big fan of actually both top lines in this game. And I was kind of musing to you earlier before the show started that I think Buffalo's top line might go a little underowned. And they're relatively cheap. I think they're about 18K. They had been 20, 21K earlier in the season. Victor Olofsson, the Jimmy Vesey top line experiment lasted 4 periods. Victor Olofsson's back on the top line, top power play unit. The one that's kind of throwing a wrench in the plans is Rasmus Ristolainen is on the top power play unit now. He's playing, I believe he's playing the bumper role effectively. So like playing kind of in the middle where TJ Oshie plays for Washington. I don't know how that's going to go. But just the fact that we have perfect correlation with Buffalo's top line, kind of like I'm gonna have both top lines, and I think both top lines are 2 like my 3 or 4 highest exposures on the entire slate. So I'm gonna have both of 20% of the point line, 20 or 25%, and 20-25% of the Eichel line. Okay. But I will say I kind of dig Skinner. Using Jeff Skinner as a one-off here. He, think back to his time in Carolina. He was scoring 30 goals playing with nobody on the third line. So him being on the second power play unit for Buffalo, him being on the second line, this is nothing new for him. Like we've seen him produce very well. And I think people that do go to Buffalo will go top line or bust. And I think that's what kind of I don't know if I'd stack the entire second line for Buffalo, but I do like Skinner quite a bit as a one-off on this slate.
Yeah, I like the call. I mean, just high volume shooters are guys we always like to target for one off. So if you're doing like your 3-2-1, or people are wanting to get away from full line stacking, which has worked to some extent this season, yeah, $5,800 Skinner, pretty good price for him. If you look at Eichel's ownership, he looks, you might say, oh, okay, Buffalo one looks pretty chalky. We've got him as one of the highest owned players on the slate. But that's because a lot of people are going to one off him, and people put their cash lineups in GPPs, and some people just don't really stack all that much in GPPs regardless of the slate size. So, I'm more interested in what his line mates are going to be like, because I want the trio if I'm stacking up Buffalo, just based on what I'm trying to do tonight. So you look at Olofsson, and he's at well under 10%. So he's like basically a third of what Eichel is as far as expected ownership. And then Reinhart is just at 10%. So, you might get some higher ownership on Eichel, but the other guys are going to be left off. And it feels like Eichel has broken the slate, oddly enough, a bunch of times this season where his line mates really haven't gotten involved. So I'm just kind of betting against that. Like, I think that's mostly variance. He's going to score more than his line mates a lot of games, but like, even if he's the one doing the goal scoring, it feels like you should be getting some assists from Reinhart and Olofsson. So I'm looking to full stack Buffalo one when I get to them. They're like just outside of like a priority play for me tonight. But I'm certainly going to have a lot of both of the top lines. Thought I might be getting off Tampa one earlier in the day just because of the ownership, because of the high implied total. But it doesn't look too bad. So I like Tampa one a lot. And I like where they're coming in as far as ownership. So both these teams right up there in like the top 6 or 7 stacks tonight. And they're probably going to project that way in most projection systems. You mentioned Ristolainen's on the top power play. I don't think, I don't think that's listed anywhere. So did you just see that on your own? Were you looking at stuff on your own?
Well, yeah, I was watching. It was the game. Was it last night? I mean, I'll go double check shift chart right now, but it was the game yesterday or on Saturday.
Okay.
Ristolainen. It was the top line plus Ristolainen and Dahlin.
Oh, Dahlin was too?
Yeah.
Okay,
they're
cool.
running a 3-4-2 defenseman power play.
Awesome. Well, that might be a potential edge for people that are watching. You could stack up Ristolainen with that top line and still have the top power play correlation. So basically you can play either of those two guys, 4K for Dahlin, 4,500 for Ristolainen. So both solid options. Brandon Montour, I'd be careful with him. He only played 11 minutes last game when they went 11-7. So I would really only be looking at the two guys you just mentioned, Ristolainen and Dahlin, for Buffalo if you're going to their defenseman. What do you think of Hedman at 7,100 here?
I mean, that's too expensive for me, I think. Like I understand that if Tampa Bay goes nuclear and gets 5 or 6 goals, like Hedman's probably going to figure in heavily, so I understand using him, but he's not a guy with a high floor. Like, he's not a Brent Burns from the last couple of years, right? He's not a guy that lands 4 shots and will block 2.5 every game or something like that. You know what I mean? So like, paying 7,100 for a defenseman who could go out and pretty easily put up like 1 shot and 1 block, and that's it, even though his team scores 3 or 4 goals. Like, it's not. I think I'm 25% Tampa one, and 2 out of the 5 lineups are with Hedman. So
Okay.
like, I'm not making him a priority to stuff in my lineups. And yeah, I'm just looking at shift chart right now, and they had 2 power plays yesterday, and both of them were Reinhart, Eichel, Olofsson, and then Ristolainen and Dahlin on the point.
All right, perfect. Then yeah, you've got a couple options to pair if you're looking for that 4-man Buffalo stack or some sort of power play stack with Skinner in there. Nice. Actually, I guess Skinner would be bumped off that top line or the top.
Yeah,
power play
Skinner got bumped to the second power play unit, which is like, I think that's why he's going to come in with almost no ownership.
That makes sense too. I like Tampa 3 a little bit. They're kind of popping for me. It's just a cheap stack. Like, you could go with the Josh stack. I don't know that you need to consider that all that often on a 9-game slate, but with some of the higher applied totals, if it makes sense, I might end up with a Tampa Bay Josh stack or 2 out of my 100 lineups. And then just a secondary play for the second line, Cirelli, Killorn, and Joseph. So Yeah, it's mostly just about Tampa 1 and Buffalo 1 here, but I think there are some secondary stacks you can definitely look at. And then I'm kind of on the same page with Hedman. It's mostly going to be like he won't be a guy I want off, I don't think, heavily at all. I like Yossi in that range, and we'll talk about him when we get there. So, yeah, he's more expensive than Yossi, and I think that's kind of crazy. All right, let's go to Minnesota and the New York. We've got a 3.1 implied total for the Wild, 3 for the Rangers, Alex Stalock and Henrik Lundqvist in net. Looks like we've got Lemieux up on the second line with Edel and Buchnevich. Kreider down to line 3 with Howden and Kakko. Big totals, I guess, for these teams. Rangers have been really, really poor defensively, getting bailed out by Lundqvist in some of these games. So high range of outcomes in this game, depending on how well Lundqvist plays, how locked in he is. What do you see in this game? Any stack that jumps out to you off the top here?
I mean, the first thing is I would be a little reticent about nailing down Rangers lines because they're a giant mess on Saturday in that 6-5 game, that comeback game against Montreal, that I didn't see them skate in a practice yesterday. And today at the game day skate, they just had players in 2 groups wearing 2 different color sweaters. So they didn't run lines this morning either. And then the coach said specifically that, we'll know lines when warm up hits. So I think the Hedl playing with Buchnevich and Lemieux was more some stuff from beat writers, and I'm not sure any combination is realistically possible because they've run so much stuff this year. Anything beyond Strome playing with Panarin, I think, is fair game. I don't have any Rangers right now because I don't know what their lines are going to be like, and I don't want to have to run around and try to fix all my lineups 20 minutes before lock or whatever it is in case something else comes up. So I don't have any Rangers right now. I imagine the Wild are going to be popular. We've seen their implied total grow throughout the day. The defensemen for me are sticking out more than anything, and that's because there's basically 4 defensemen in play on the Minnesota side. I guess you could say 3. I'm not a big Ryan Suter guy. I never really use him in DFS. But Dumba, Spurgeon, and Brad Hunt, they all play the power play. Each of their power play units are 3 forwards, 2 defensemen. Spurgeon particularly typically plays a lot of minutes, and he's only 4,300 or something like that. And I do like the Minnesota second line. I think Minnesota's top line they're kind of running hot a little bit, and sometimes that's when you want to use them, but I also think they're playing way above their heads, and I don't like playing guys that are playing way above their heads. I like to kind of go the other way usually, so I'll probably have a couple lineups with Minnesota too. That's Koivu, Fiala, and Parise in them. They all play the same power play together. They're on the Jared Spurgeon power play unit. Like you mentioned, the Rangers are atrocious defensively, and once you get into the second, third, and fourth lines, it just gets even worse. And not to mention the Rangers are one of the most penalized teams in the NHL. So I think if you're going to take, somebody you're going to take lines from Minnesota, it's going to be the first or second line, and you're going to stack all 3 of them together because they do have perfect correlation on the power play. I just think Minnesota 2 is in a little bit of a better spot, cheaper. You mentioned that you like Tampa Bay's depth lines. I don't like Tampa Bay's depth lines as much because I think there are other depth lines we can use on this slate, Minnesota 2 being one of them.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, Minnesota 2 is the one that I like as well, talking about the Koivu, Parise, and Fiala line, just fully correlated. Top power play, you mentioned the penalties the Rangers are taking. So I'm definitely with you there. I'm not finding myself getting to a lot of Stahl, Zucker, and Zuccarello, so I hope that doesn't come back to bite me because I love attacking the Rangers. But for me, it's going to be the line that I think is in just as good of a spot. In the Koivu line, they're projected to be at lower ownership based on what we have, at least on DraftKings, and they're fully correlated on the top power play. So the power plays are probably going to be pretty evenly split, but maybe they get the first look at it, the guaranteed look. When the Rangers do take penalties, which they have a bunch. Good call on the Rangers lines. I actually did notice that maybe it was 2 games ago when they just completely blended everything, and then maybe they had a back-to-back after that, so I forgot to check there. But good call on that. Definitely going to be a game I want to check the line rushes at 6:30 Eastern. So guys, be in Slack if you're not already. Be in Slack for at 6:30 because I'm sure we'll be alerting the channel if we see some new lines anywhere, but especially on this Rangers side. And you mentioned a bunch of defensemen that are viable on the Minnesota side. I like Spurgeon the best for 4,300. Dumba also a quality play for 4,900. And then on the Rangers side, I usually get to a ton of Trouba, but let's see where I'm at. Actually, I did get to a bunch of Trouba. I got to about 15% of him. I don't know. He's one of my favorite guys in like the 6K range that when I can't get up to Yossi, I'm just going to play a bunch of minutes. I'm also playing some Brady Shea at 3,400. So that top pairing for the Rangers, if that indeed is going to be the top pairing once we get to line rushes. What do you think about Minnesota 3? Is this just too deep?
Yeah, for me, I don't think we don't have a 24K line tonight. You know what I mean? So you don't need to go find a 9. And I think you really want to take advantage of the Rangers penalties. So I think that would mean going to the first or second line.
Yeah, that's the problem with them. Like the only problem I see is just that like they have got good numbers. They're playing good. They're playing a decent amount of time, especially on home ice. They're seeing some time against opposing top competition. Here they don't have last change, so I understand like if you're just putting out a bunch of bullets, playing the mini max, playing the $15 whatever, and you get to a few shares of them, I think that's fine if you're looking to play like Tampa or Pittsburgh plus spend up at D. But I wouldn't be going crazy just because they're cheap. Like you do want to attack the power play, like you said, Cliffy. So I'm with you there. Let's go to Vancouver and Philadelphia. We've got a 2.8 implied total for the Canucks, 3.3 for the Flyers. Thatcher Demko and Carter Hart in net. I'm only getting to really one side of this game. Is there anything you like here?
Yeah, Philly too. I have a lot of Philly too.
Which line is that?
Sorry, Couturier, Lindblom, Voracek.
Okay.
The Canucks have kind of changed their lines a little bit. Like JT Miller is now playing with Bo Horvat. That's been the case for a couple games now. Pedersen and Besser are playing with Pearson now. I think it makes Horvat's line better, but it makes Pearson's line worse. And it makes them worse defensively, especially. And that's going to be a big problem playing against the Couturier line. The Couturier line, like they're just dominant at 5-on-5. The problem with Philly is like, I think both top lines are viable in this one. Even though like I think Morgan Frost might be kind of expensive. Like he's 5,200 after 3 games in the NHL. Like I find that exceedingly expensive. So I think the problem I'm running into is that both top lines for the Flyers are viable, but I expect Couturier to see almost the entire game against Elias Pettersson. I get matchup data from a fellow Dauber writer. His name's Adam Daly. He has a Patreon that people can subscribe to get matchup data. He has Couturier's line playing almost the entire line against Pettersson. And like I said, I think they just got weaker defensively with JT Miller moving off. So while I do like the Philly top line here just in general, I think it's a kind of a tough matchup going up against Horvat and Miller. So I would go with Couturier going up against Pettersson and Besser. And I think they're my highest exposure tonight at 30%.
Yeah, I was kind of bummed when I saw the ownership on them. Like it was, it's not crazy, but like they are up there as one of the more popular lines. The Couturier line, they're still below 10%, so it's not like you can't like get a good share of them and not have to go crazy and be overweight. But yeah, that was the first thing that caught my eye, and just Philly in general. I like both of the top two lines, so it's kind of tough for me to pick. Right now, I'm pretty much even. I'm on both of their lines. But in MME, like I think you can play either one of these. Couturier probably going to have the edge in the ice time, whereas the top line will have the top power play designation. So it's really, really close between the two. The pricing is pretty close between the two as well. And you're seeing the ownership going. The ownership edge is not the ownership edge. There's more ownership on the Couturier line just because they're a little bit cheaper. But I think both of them are really awesome options. I'm not really looking at anything on Vancouver. Certainly not the Pedersen-Besser line, just because they're going to get matched up with Couturier. Is that the read you had as well? I think I missed you when you talked about that.
Right. Yeah. Couturier is probably going to be Pedersen against Pedersen like the whole game.
Yep. Okay.
So I'm with you. I don't. If JT Miller was still on that line, I might have a little bit of interest. But the other thing too is Philly is one of the least penalized teams in the NHL, if I'm not mistaken. Like they're taking under 3 penalties a game, which is well under the league average. And Vancouver draws a lot of their offensive, upside from the power play because they play so many minutes. So if they only get 2, maybe 3 power plays, they're not going to go off like they did against Nashville.
Yeah, that was nuts. So they had 5 power play goals.
Yeah.
How often does that even happen? I feel like I haven't even ever heard of that since I started playing NHL DFS.
Like I'm sure it happens probably once or twice a year when you're not paying attention, but it's not. I don't remember seeing it happen this season at all. So
that's nuts. Just back to back, like every time.
Well, just even just this is a small tangent. Even just getting 2 power play goals in a game is extremely rare for a team. Like if I'm not mistaken, it happens in fewer than 10% of a team's games. So, that's one thing people have to realize about DFS too, is that it's not all the scoring doesn't just come from power plays just because it's easier to score on the power plays. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. And that's why I had such an issue with I think it was the Eichel line and maybe a couple other lines that I've not really been playing all that much, is because the numbers at 5-on-5 weren't great and they were expensive. So I was like, all right, well, yeah, they could be perfect on the power play, and they had a couple big games getting there with full line goals in the power play. But I want lines that play really well at even strength, and then I'll worry about the rest afterwards. If the power play correlation isn't perfect, that's also probably going to lower their ownership as a line as well. So to me, I put more weight in the even strength numbers, and you just hope you get lucky on the power play for the most part. Obviously, if it's like Tampa versus the Rangers, or Pittsburgh with Crosby and Letang, and they've got like this nasty power play, maybe it's a different story. But I just want lines that play well at 5-on-5. Any defensemen you're looking at in this game? Provorov, Niskanen, Sanheim, 2,700. His price refuses to come up. Edler is 64. Hughes. I mean, do any of these guys pique your interest at all?
I mean, I think Edler's too expensive. Hughes, if I was playing Vancouver's power play, I'd play Hughes, but I wouldn't play him otherwise. I don't think he goes off unless the power play goes off, and I don't expect the power play to do too well tonight. So nothing there. I think I have one Provorov by himself, and then I have a few of my Couturier lineups have Niskanen in them, just because he plays on the power play with them. So. I think I'm one Provorov out of 20 lineups. It's like one Provorov, 3 Niskanens, and then that's it.
Yeah. All right, let's go to Calgary, and I'm on the same page. By the way, I probably won't have much of anything for defensemen in that game. Calgary and Pittsburgh, we've got a 2.7 implied total for the Flames, 3.3 for the Penguins. David Riddick, and I think it's going to be Tristan Jarry in net for the Penguins. One of the beats was speculating that it was going to be him and Murray tomorrow. I think they play, or maybe it's Wednesday. They're just giving Murray a day off. Anyways, one of the beats speculated that it's going to be Jarry, so I put him in. We'll adjust if need be. 2.7 implied for the Flames, 3.3 for the Penguins. And I just got an alert on my phone that Chris Letang is playing in this game. He's probable for tonight.
He was activated off the injured reserve, so it really looks like he's going to be coming back.
Yeah, so I mean, there's your bump down to all these Pittsburgh defensemen. Dumoulin was playing on the top power play. That's got to go away, right? It's going to be Letang on the top power play. Yeah. So a little bit trickier to 4-man stack Pittsburgh if you're interested in that, which I certainly am. You're going to have to pay up for Letang. So. What do you do with this game? You mentioned we talked about Pittsburgh 1 a little bit compared to a Tampa 1. Where do you have them in your hierarchy of lines tonight, because they are the most expensive line on the slate?
Yeah, so here's the thing is that I actually have Pittsburgh 1 as my second highest, personally for me, my second highest projected line on the slate. The problem is that they're so expensive. It's 21,800. So like you said, if you fit in Letang, now you're up close to 20. Now you're up close to 28K, and you have 22,000 left for another stack. Your goalie, and a defenseman. So you're going to have to go look for a 10 or an 11K line or play a bunch of one-offs. So that's kind of the problem that I'm running into with Pittsburgh. Like, I'll say flat out, I don't have much from this game at all. I think I have a couple Letangs. I was expecting him to come back, so I already have him in my lineups. I have a couple Letangs, but I have nothing from the Calgary side. I should note that TJ Brody's going to be back for this game. He'll be on the top pair with Mark Giordano. He's only 3K, but I still don't really have a lot of interest. I have a couple of Tanks and I have a couple Brian Dumoulin's just because he's still going to be on the top pair. But that's basically it. Like, I'm not really excited about this game. Like, the Malkin line is just way too expensive for me. Like, I'm not paying $6,800 for Brian Rust. I don't care how hot he's running. The McCann line is going to be in a tough matchup, assuming that they see a fair amount of the Backlund Kachuk line. So then, do you go down and play Simone and Cahoon? Like, I don't want to go that cheap. So for me, like I said, I think I'll have a couple Dumoulin's, a couple Letangs. Other than that, I'm not going to be stacking anything out of this game. I
really, really, really like Pittsburgh 1. So I guess we're on a different page there. And, they're super expensive, but they also grade out incredibly well. Like, I can't find a reason why I wouldn't like them outside of, they're just a little bit difficult to fit in. And so for me, like that's just like, all right, well, that presents an opportunity to get them at low ownership. We project them for pretty low ownership. And even if, we're off by a few percentage points here, I think this is a spot where, we talk about the MLB top stacks tool. I don't know if you've used that at all, Cliffy. I guess you probably haven't.
No.
But, you calculate the team's chances of being the top stack compared to their ownership, or like the average ownership of like the 9 hitters. Here would be the average ownership of the 3 skaters here. And I think this is a huge opportunity to play a line that, yes, they're expensive, but that's probably going to make them under-owned, especially when you compare them to Tampa 1. Like, the projection is going to be essentially the same, like within a few points of each other, no matter where you look. And they're just harder to fit in. So I'm going to try to jam them in as much as possible. They're going to be one of my highest exposed lines tonight in MME formats. So. All right.
I'll do this. Out of my 20 lineups, I'll go add 2 Pittsburgh stacks because I think I have some second line Los Angeles, which are cheap enough to fit in Pittsburgh. Yeah. So I'll fit in a couple Pittsburgh stacks just for you, just in case they do go off.
All right. Yeah, there we go. I mean, the numbers for Malkin, Gensel, and Russ are actually really awesome. I thought they would take a huge step down, like just Pittsburgh as a team with Crosby out. I don't think the matchup's going to be that bad if they're going up against Monahan, Gaudreau, and Lindholm for a lot of the time. I don't know that Pittsburgh's going to hard match or anything here. I haven't seen anything so far in their couple home games without Crosby. And it's not like Malkin's really a shutdown center anyways. You don't want them going up too much against the Backlund line, but I think they're going to be okay here as far as the matchup at 5-on-5, full power play correlation. Letang being back does help the power play. And then Calgary just kind of stinks. So, I don't know. All those reasons plus the low ownership are leading me to play a bunch of Pittsburgh 1 tonight. So I'm going down with the ship here once again on Pittsburgh. Anything you mentioned no stacks in this game. Did you like any defensemen? I mean, what does Letang being back do for you, if anything?
Like, I do have a fair bit of Letang, and I will say that. And it's like, I don't know why I do. He just grades out well for me, even without Crosby in the lineup. So I'm just not arguing with my numbers on this one. I'm just going with what they tell me. So that's why I have a couple of Tang. I don't like the Calgary side of this game. Like, I was on a podcast yesterday with some other people from Dobber Hockey, and I spent the afternoon just researching some stuff. And if you look at Calgary's offense, like, it's atrocious. Every line, they're just shooting from the boards. They're shooting from the blue line. They're not getting to the net. They're not generating from the slot. They're not shooting from the circles. Like, it's an embarrassing offense to watch. Like, it's one of those nights where 12 months ago, like, I think Calgary might be low owned, and I would go and just smash the hell out of them. But this team just looks terrible. I think, like, it's funny that the top line for Pittsburgh is too expensive. But the first thing that popped in my mind when I started researching the slate this morning is, with the way Calgary's running, this is a type of spot where Peters gets fired. Like, Pittsburgh just blasts them like 7-1, and then Peters gets fired after the game.
Yeah.
Like that's the first thing that popped in my mind this morning. But then my model told me that they're too expensive. So you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
maybe I'll have to go with
Fair.
my gut on this one.
No, that's fair. I mean, it's just a crazy price to pay for Brian Rust, especially 6,800.
Yeah.
We haven't seen Gensel price too much, even over 7K. Now he's 7,500. I mean, Malkin, you're not getting a discount there. So it's a spend up to be contrarian spot, one that I'm trying to take advantage of. If I had one lineup, I don't know if I would get to Pittsburgh, but like, the ownership's going to be really concentrated, as it always is in like 3-max and single entry, like on the best plays or like the most valuable plays. Like I think you're going to get Pittsburgh one really low owned in those formats. So if you have the Stones, if you like a cheap line, yeah, I think they're just a really great option relative to their ownership. Let's go to Ottawa and Columbus. We've got a 2.7 implied total for the Sens, 3.4 for the Blue Jackets. Craig Anderson and Jonas Korpisalo in net. Let's see. We've had these Blue Jackets lines for a couple of games, but just to recap, Nyquist with Jenner and Bjorkstrand. That is the third line on some lineup sites. It's really not the third line. Dubois with Milano and Bemstrom, and then Foligno with Texier and Cam Atkinson. How do you sort out here? How do you sort out what to do with Columbus here? Do you like one of their lines more than the others against Ottawa here?
Yeah, I would say if I'm stacking Columbus, it's going to be the Jenner line, Jenner, Bjorkstrand, Nyquist, and it's because it's the same reason with Minnesota. The Rangers take a lot of penalties. It's that Ottawa takes a lot of penalties. I think, in fact, they're the most penalized team in the NHL. So you're going to want one of the lines that are stacked on the power play. That Jenner line, they have perfect correlation. On the top power play unit with Werenski, they're not that expensive. I haven't checked the Osmo ownership projections yet. I imagine they're going to be pretty popular tonight at home, cheap line against Ottawa. But I'll tell you that all the lines in this game, I have the most exposure from the Ottawa top line.
Yeah.
Their numbers, you want to talk about crazy numbers. They're at 19 high danger chances per 60 minutes, which is just a stupid number. Like 14 is high. They're at 19. Their expected goals is almost 4 per 60 minutes, which again is just a stupid number. Columbus isn't that good defensively. Like they're fine, but it's not like you're going into Boston or you're going into Vegas or something like that. They all play together on the power play, if I'm not mistaken. They're kind of expensive. Like I think they're around 16.5K. But it's not one of those 19K you have to go with super cheap defensemen just to fit them in. Like you can fit them in with another stack and still, get a high priced defenseman somewhere. So yeah, I do have some shares of the Jenner, Bjorkstrand, Nyquist line, but of all the lines in this game, I'm going to have most of Ottawa one.
I'm right there with you. Yeah, so we might not have been on the same page on Pittsburgh, but yeah, you're preaching to the choir here. Ottawa 1 might be my favorite play relative to the ownership we have right now on them. So they're going to be one of my highest exposed lines, and we've got them even lower than Pitt 1. So the numbers are absurd, and that was the first thing I saw. They actually grade out pretty well when you use a lot of this year's data. And so I don't think a lot of projection systems have kind of caught up, and I don't think a lot of people look at like individual line numbers and stuff like that. Fully correlated on the power play. You mentioned the spot against Columbus. Not like an elite spot, but I'll just take a chance on a line that's been incredible at 5-on-5 that has full power play correlation. Maybe you run good and you get a power play goal or two. But yeah, you said Ottawa 1. I consider them Ottawa 1 as well. We're talking about Brown, Tkachuk, and Duclair. So they're listed as Ottawa 2 on the screen, but we're talking about Tkachuk, Brown, Duclair. That is really Ottawa 1. That's the line I'm going to be incredibly heavy on relative to the ownership that they are projected for. So other side, just circling back, Jenner, Nyquist, Bjorkstrand, I don't think I'm going to outsmart myself here. Like they're fully correlated on the power play. They're all pretty talented. You're probably going to get a decent amount of shots from them. They're not going to kill you for that price. It seems like going up against Ottawa's, some sort of like depth lines really. Ottawa stinks defensively, but they are fun for DFS. So I'm expecting a lot of shots both ways, and hopefully coming from the Brown line, or the Kachuk line, I should say, and Jenner, Nyquist, and Bjorkstrand. We have Atkinson projected as one of the highest owned players on the slate, and that's probably just because 6,100 against Ottawa. I don't know, Texier and Foligno with him, they don't really do that much, so the stack I'm going to be heaviest on is going to be the Jenner line. Werenski Jones, 56 and 5,700 for these two guys. Do you have a big stance on either one?
Yeah, I mean, I have some Werenski just because I want to take advantage of the power play matchup. That's kind of where I'm at. But it's not a situation like, we talk about sometimes, like I said with Hedman, like if you use Hedman, you're probably going to want to stack him with the rest of Tampa Bay. I think you're fine using Werenski here by himself. Like, this could be a 3-2 Columbus game with Werenski having a goal and assist, right? And, chipping in 3 different lines, chipping in on the scoring. It's something you can easily see from this team because they're so balanced. So I think Werenski's a guy he's fine to use as a one-off. You don't necessarily have to stack him with the rest of the line.
Yeah, I like Werenski as a one-off or with the line. Jones more of a one-off guy. Not really sure where you go if you were trying to pair him with one of these lines. I guess Columbus 4, the Wenberg-Anderson duo is on the second power play with Jones, so maybe if you were getting crazy deep, but I don't think you need to play fourth lines tonight. Shabbat 6,200, not on the top power play. Is that right? This is the first time I'm seeing that. Is it DeMello on the top unit?
No, I have Shabbat.
Okay.
Unless something weird has changed recently.
I'll look at that after the show. I'll make a note of that.
Yeah, one other thing is, though, about speaking of Ottawa defensemen is Ron Hainsey's playing on the top pair with Shabbat, and Ron Hainsey is 2,500. He played 24 minutes last game.
All right,
so, yeah, so if you need like an absolute punt defenseman, you can do a lot worse than a guy playing on the top pair playing 24 minutes.
Yeah, I think there's another guy. Maybe it was Bogosian that I kind of circled earlier today that played decent minutes on. He was either the first or second pairing. That's mid-salary. But yeah, those are pretty rare. So just taking advantage of the minutes. If you're in a tough spot, you need a pure punt. That might be a guy to get to. St. Louis.
So okay, sorry, no, just real quick. The reason there was a mistake, or like you're wondering about the power play units, is that last game they did run DeMello on the power play. But Shabbat had literally just come off like a minute and a half shift.
Okay.
So they put DeMello out there, and then Shabbat played the next 2 power plays after that. So it seemed like it was just the way that the lines happened to unfold at the time.
Okay. Sounds good then. Let's go to St. Louis and Nashville. 2.6 implied total for the Blues, 3 for the Preds. Jake Allen in net against likely UC Saros for the Preds. Seems like it should be a pretty low event game based on the total. Do you like stacking up anybody here? We've seen teams go into Nashville lately and have a bunch of success. Is this one of those nights for St. Louis?
I mean, I think I have one share of the Shen line, and then that's it from this game. Like, don't forget they played on the weekend, and Bortuzzo, it was that incident with Arvidsson when he hurt Arvidsson, and this is the first game 2 days later, so I'm kind of worried that this is going to turn into a bunch of guys taking 2 and 10s all game long. So, like, I'm largely staying away from this game for that reason.
Yeah, that's going to be difficult to deal with from a DFS perspective. I wasn't even thinking about that, and I remember, like, seeing the play and saying, like, to myself, like, next time these two teams play, like, that's going to get ugly. And
it's 2 days later, so
yikes. Yeah, I guess I was looking at wherever Forsberg's at is usually where I'm gravitated towards on Nashville's side. Not really crazy about any St. Louis line. So it's probably just going to be some Nashville one for me. Maybe Forsberg, Johansson, and Yarncroc aren't the guys taking penalties in this game, because now that you mentioned that, we might see, some whistle-happy officials. Maybe the league comes down on them to try to get it under control right away. I'm not exactly sure how it's going to work out. But yeah,
it's just one of those things for me. Like, it just feels like a headache that I just don't want to deal with. You know what I mean? It, like, if there was something that I loved in this game, like if Arvidsson was playing and it was the old Nashville one lineup, then I might be interested. But Yarncroc's on the top line. Like, there's no Tarasenko for St. Louis. St. Louis just doesn't score that many goals anyways. And then, Nashville's lineup is all jumbled. Like, it seems like there's just a lot of headache for not a lot of reward. So I'm just largely passing on this one.
Does that include guys like defensemen here? Like, would you want off defensemen? Do you like Yossi?
Yeah, I have some Ekholm. He's 4,200. That's basically it. And it's basically just because Jake Allen's starting, not Binnington. Like, I think Nashville's going to put up a few goals here tonight, but I think, like, for Nashville, it would be more one-off guys than stacking.
All right. That makes sense. Yossi's my favorite defenseman tonight, and I don't think that's going to change, even based on what I was just reminded of. So Yossi's my guy at 6,700. I'll play this guy wherever. Like, he's having a Brent Burns from like 2 years ago type season so far this year. If you just look at the rates and the minutes, he's on like just firmly on the top power play. It doesn't matter. Like, he just seems to always produce. So I'll take that for 6,700 all day. Vegas and Dallas. I think you're probably going to like one of the lines here. 2.6 implied total for the Golden Knights, 2.9 for the Stars. Malcolm Subban and Ben Bishop in net. Revamped Stars lines. This time they look pretty good, though. We've got Jamie Benn with Rupe Hintz and Tyler Seguin. And then it doesn't matter after that. That's the line we're probably going to go to, right? Do you like that line? What do you think of those three guys together?
Yeah, I'm with you. I've not a lot, but I think 3 out of 20 lineups I have the Dallas top line or some combination of the Dallas of that power play unit. Vegas is like, they don't take a ton of penalties, but they're right around league average, so that's at least good enough for us. Malcolm Subban starting too, like, it's not Marc-Andre Fleury, so that's even better. I mean, and like, the implied totals really threw me off for this game because I was looking over the numbers from the last like 5 weeks, and both these teams are top 5 in expected goals per 60 minutes. So I don't know why like some of the implied totals that I've looked at, especially earlier in the day, were so low. But I really like both sides here. Like, I have, like you're talking about Hintz, Seguin, and Ben. Like, I did some research over at Dobber Hockey where I write about season long, and it seems like Ben and Pavelski in particular are due for some really positive power play regression over the balance of the season. And it's like, once that kicks in with the minutes that they're playing on the top line and the way that they're playing, like, Dallas has been playing like one of the best teams in the league for a few weeks now. Like, it's tough to get away from that top line, especially where Hintz is so cheap. Like, you don't need them all correlated together when they're not like a 21K line or something like that. So I do like that side. And I also like the Vegas side, Carlson, Marchessault, Smith. Same thing about the power play regression. Carlson, or I think it's Marchessault and Smith in particular, are at about a quarter of the expected power play production that they should have to this point. So they should see a big turnaround over the balance of the season, and that's only going to drive their prices up. So I'm trying to take advantage of the cheap, especially the wingers. The wingers are fairly cheap right now.
I may have missed this, whether they did a skate this morning or maybe yesterday. Is Stastny back up with Pacioretty and Stone?
Yeah, they're back to their old top 6.
Okay. I like that. I mean, Eakin was fine there, I guess, but that line was one of the best lines all season last year when they were together. Now they've got the normal lines back for Vegas. I think you can play either one. I'm playing more of Vegas 1, Carlson, Marchessault, Smith. And then I really like Dallas. That's a priority play for me, Dallas 1. I just think it's a pretty electric line, those three together. So hopefully they give him some time. They give him a couple games, even if it doesn't, or a few games, even if it doesn't, come together tonight and they don't score a bunch of goals. Like, I think an explosion's coming. Like, that seems like a really, really fun line. You mentioned the power play as well. I like Dallas 1. Vegas 1 is more of a contrarian play that I'm getting to. Looks like more than the field. And then you've got Lindell, Klingberg, Hiskinen, probably a bump down with Klingberg back. Any defensemen you're heavily targeting here?
Yeah, for some reason I'm getting a lot of Nate Schmidt, and it's weird because like he's not a guy that I typically roster a fair amount, but then I actually went and looked at his numbers this year. And then the reason I don't typically roster him is because he's never been a real like a volume shooter, but this year he's like his numbers are way up. Like he's up to over 2 shots and nearly 2 blocks per game. So he's one of those combo guys who's, at least so far since he's returned from injury, has been a threat for the 5-shot, 3-block bonus. Like, it's a tall task for any defenseman, but he's at least threatening it. He's at least threatening that, and I guess that's why he's popping up so much. So I do have a fair bit of Nate Schmidt. Schmidt and Klingberg mostly. I'm not playing Esa Lindell. Like, I'm just not doing it. I'm sorry. He's just way overrated. He shouldn't even be 3,900.
And that's probably going to be like an optimizer play if people are running 4-3-1s and using the Dallas top line. You know, you got 2 guys in the top power play with Lindell. So you'd prefer Klingberg for 4,200 then, sounds like?
Oh, yeah.
I think
for sure.
I'm right there with you. All right, let's go on to the last couple games. You've got the Islanders and the Ducks, 2.9 implied total for the Isles, 2.6 for the Ducks. Thomas Greiss expected to go against John Gibson, not confirmed yet. I was looking around to see if we could find something on Ducks lines. One of the beats was saying that they skated this morning and had a really tough skate because they didn't go yesterday. Do you see anything on Anaheim lines, and does it really matter even if we don't?
I mean, I haven't seen anything from Anaheim in particular. I mean, it's usually pretty tough just getting any information out of them at all anyway. I'm not expecting the lines to change, but I'm not full stacking the lines either. I'm using mostly the line that I'm focusing on is Getzlaf and Raquel, and it should be Troy Terry, but we're not sure if he's going to be there or not. But I'm just doing Getzlaf and Raquel anyway because I'm focusing more on the power play than anything. And they should be matched up against Brock Nelson, which is the second line for the Islanders. And I think that's the best matchup you can possibly get when you're facing the Islanders. So I do have some Getzlaf Raquel with Fowler. But that's basically it from this game. Hit that plus a couple shares of John Gibson, but I didn't get to anything from the Islanders, and I don't have any other lines from Anaheim.
I'm getting to some of both of the lines for the Islanders. I'd like to kind of choose one here because I don't really love the spot for them, but they're both grading out okay for me, and they're both really low ownership, I guess, is more what's pushing them up. When I run crunches and kind of filter out some lineups I think are going to be too chalky. So they're good for that if you're going for one of the chalkier top lines. They're decently priced. Brock Nelson at 6,300 seems kind of crazy, but he has been good. He's, that line has been the nuts a couple times, actually, maybe a couple times last week. Islanders too. So they're running pretty hot. Barzal, Lee, and Eberle, their defensive numbers are pretty bad as well. So I want to get to something from the Ducks. If you just look at the numbers for the top 2 lines, seems like it should be a decent matchup for Getzlaf and Raquel. So that's probably going to be the line I focus on as well. Whether it's Jones, I saw Jones get a few shifts with Raquel and Getzlaf last game. I don't know. I'm probably just going to leave Terry on there if I'm doing 3-3s and just adjust later if I have to. There's another game later too if you need to swap if things go weird in warm-ups for the Ducks. But I just couldn't find anything concrete on their lines. So probably just going to limit it to Getzlaf. And what you're saying is probably the better way to do it. If you're running 3-2-1s, just use Getzlaf and Raquel as your 2-man and don't worry about the rest. Any defenseman you're looking at here? Pollock, 51. Tays. I mean, no one on the Ducks is really anyone I'm ever targeting that much for defensemen. But.
Yeah. I have a couple Fowlers with my Getzlaf Raquels, but other than that, I don't think I have a single player from the Islanders in any of my lineups tonight. So I'm mostly out on them.
Do you just not like playing the Islanders, or are they too expensive for you? I mean, what is it about them? I mean, I'm interested.
They just don't play. Everybody talks about Barry Trotz's system, and yeah, that's great for them. They're winning a bunch of games because of it, but it's terrible for offense. Like you mentioned, the second line had done real well. Like they had a really good 4 or 5 game stretch or something like that. I mean, and that's going to happen, and you're going to miss out on those from time to time. But if you try to time when a run is going to start happening and just start playing those lines blindly all the time, you're just going to keep losing money. And they just don't generate enough offense for me to justify. Like if the Barzal line was like 15K or something like that, then I might be interested. But where you're going to pay, what is it, like 17 or 18,000 for them?
Let's see. I think they are 64. What are they? They're
Oh
just.
no, they are. Sorry, they are cheaper there with
Yeah.
Everly.
Yeah,
no,
yeah.
so
They're not too
yeah,
bad.
that is fine. It's just they play way too low event
Fair.
for me to really justify playing them, especially on the road.
Yeah, that's a fair take. I mean, I don't love the Islanders either. I was surprised that they were coming up for me when I was going through this game. I was kind of looking to see if I could get something to on the Duck side, like I said, but kind of an ugly game. I feel like I'm going to get it wrong one way or the other. Low total, and like I kind of think both Islanders lines are okay. I kind of think the Getzlaf line is okay, but maybe my ownership or my exposure is better spent on other lines and other teams. Let's go to the last game of the night, Sharks and Kings, and then we'll get out of here. 3.2 implied total for the Sharks, 2.8 for the Kings. Actually, before we go through this game, before you guys log off, we do have a giveaway going on, the NFL Monday Night Football giveaway. Same as always, retweet, like, reply with the player that's going to score the most fantasy points in the matchup. So do that. It is free. There's really no reason not to. You can win a Osmo Plus NFL season pass for the rest of the year. Pretty good deal. If you're going to play Showdown, if you're not playing Showdown, it gives you a reason to watch the game otherwise. Because you can't just watch sports anymore. You have to gamble on it. You have to play DFS. It feels like that's the case, at least for me. All right, 3.2 implied total for the Sharks, 2.8 for the Kings. Marty Jones and Jonathan Quick expected for the Kings. Jones is confirmed. We've got Patrick Marleau moving up to the top line with Couture and Kane. That is sad. And then Barclay Goodrow with Meyer and LeBanc. So LeBanc and Marleau swapped. Kind of annoying. I wanted to play the Sharks here. I wanted to play a lot of the Sharks here. I'm still going to play some of them, but now with a more balanced top six, I don't really know where to go. And then we've got the LA side. Cheap second line, Kopitar, Brown, Iafallo, all listed on the top power play. Not a bad spot against a team that isn't great on 5-on-5 at 5-on-5 in the Sharks. So it feels like there's something to like here. What is it that you like best?
I mean, I'm with you. I wanted to play the Sharks today, and then I found out Tomas Hertl wasn't coming back. I thought he might be back. He's not coming back. And then they moved Kevin LeBanc off the top line and put Patrick Marleau there. So, what went from what looked to be a good play is just like a puddle of garbage now. I don't want. I took all my Sharks out. I think I was 20% Hertl and Meyer, and I just took out Meyer, took out Hertl, took out Carlson, took out Burns. I took out everything from that team. Like Marlowe's going to drag that line down. He doesn't help them in any regard. Barclay Goodrow is not a second line center in the NHL. And Timo Meyer can't do it all himself. And Kevin LeBanc is good, but Kevin LeBanc needs somebody who can drive the play like Tomas Hertl. Barclay Goodrow can't do that. So I pulled all my Sharks out of my lineups. If it bites me in the ass, so be it. I'm not playing Barclay Goodrow and Patrick Marleau. I'm just not doing it. So I'm more on the LA side. You mentioned their second line. The second line is really cheap. It's Grundstrom, Carter, and Toffoli. Believe it or not, Jeff Carter is averaging the most shots per game in 6 years for himself. And contained in those 6 years are one 30-goal season, multiple 25-goal seasons. So I don't want to say he's back, but at least he's looking better. And Tyler Toffoli is playing 16, 17 minutes a game now regularly, finally, and is shooting. I think he's landing over 3 shots per game so far in November. So Carter and Toffoli are both shooting, and Grundstrom super cheap along for the ride. So if you're using they're a line I use quite a bit with the Tampa Bay top line.
Yeah, I love it. I love LA too. That's one of my favorite values of the night, especially with no Hertl for the Sharks. That makes them weaker down the middle. If Hertl was in for the Sharks, I think San Jose 2 might be my highest exposed line of the night, assuming they would go Kopitar against Kane and Couture. Are you worried about the Kopitar line hard matching either one of these lines? And it'd probably be the Couture line, right?
Yeah, Kopitar should see a fair amount of the Couture line. I'm not really that interested in either of those top lines. So that second line will probably play against the opposing second line. And if the opposing second, like I said, Barclay Goodrow is not a good two-way player, and Meyer and LeBanc typically haven't had good defensive numbers together. So I think this is a situation where that Los Angeles second line is just going to roll them tonight.
Yeah, I hope so. I will have a lot
Yeah.
of LA too. Sharks just messing it up at the perfect time. I don't really have much Carlson or Burns either. Like I mentioned, I like Yossi a ton, and he's right around the same price as Burns. Carlson 5,800. I mean, it's fine, but I would also say I would be careful using or just like running an optimizer with 3 threes because for the Sharks because Marleau is going to grade out as an okay value, and he's going to pull the value of that line up and an already like good duo in Couture and Evander Kane. So I'm just like limiting my exposure. I'm just capping them and just letting, if I get 5% of them, that's fine out of 100 lineups. But I don't really want to be super heavy on San Jose 1 without LeBanc on that top line. Doughty, any other defensemen before we get out of here?
Alec Martinez,
Okay.
He's on that second power play unit, and they're actually getting some time together. So he's a guy that I do have with the Los Angeles second line in a couple of my lineups.
All right. That should do it. Guys, once again, check out the free content that we have today, NHL projections. Be careful with San Jose in those projections today. Showdown rankings, if you are playing NFL Showdown, I'm certainly going to be playing NFL Showdown. Had some success last night, so going to donate some back tonight because it's only right. DraftKings and FanDuel single game ownership projections for NBA are also free today. So go check out this free stuff while you can. There will be different stuff tomorrow. If you want to join, promo code Hit the Ice gets you 50% off your first month of any monthly package on awesemo.com. So use that. It would help us out. And then go and check out Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports. Let me go to the lobby really quick. Check out the NFL contest. They've got some nice NHL ones as well. But I'm really focused on the NFL ones, specifically the 75K Turkey Trot. I already got my entries in. 25K overlay. Use promo code OSMO to get up to $30 in Yahoo Sports rewards points when you join on your first deposit. We never talk about goalies on this show, Cliffy. Do you have any that stick out to you? I know you like to play like a tight core of goalies. Do you want to say a couple of them that you like?
Yeah, the highest ownerships I have tonight are John Gibson and UC Saros. I'm assuming Saros is starting.
Yep.
I haven't checked goalie starts since early this afternoon. But yeah, it's Saros, Gibson, mostly for me. I think I have a couple Ben Bishops as well.
I like the call on all those. I'm definitely with you there on Saros. Just a home favorite at 7,500. Kind of hard to pass that up, even though the volume might not be fantastic. Don't really like Yari that much. Let's see. Another guy, Lundqvist, I'm getting to a decent amount of him at 8K. He's just always going to see volume, and if he's on his A game, you could be looking at 40 saves and possibly a win in what is essentially a pick'em game. So there you go. There's a couple of top goalie plays. I'll try to mention those on the solo shows. I usually forget about goalie because I just like to correlate a lot and don't put too much thought into it because that position stinks. All right. If you guys could, feel free to give us a like on the way out. It does help us continue to do this kind of content for free. Cliffy, thanks for joining. And do you have any last words for the people on this slate?
Yeah, just don't play Calgary.
There you have it. I agree. Play the other side. Play Pittsburgh 1, and I'll meet you guys at the top. Good luck tonight, guys. Nolan and
Good luck,
I.
everyone.
Actually, I'll be alone tomorrow. It's a short slate, and then we'll have the Wednesday slate, and then it's Thanksgiving. So there's only one game. Good luck tonight, guys.
Good luck, everyone.